Okay, so this meeting is sponsored by a group of individual citizens, not by the city. The panelists were chosen by vocal members of their respective sides. All the panelists are citizens of Highland, and none are elected officials. Elected public officials, I don't think they're any kind of elected officials. This event is going to be a loosely moderated discussion, followed by 1 minute of regrouping for the teams to decide who they want to give their closing arguments. And then they get, I didn't tell you guys this before, but you get 6 minutes at the end, each team. So you can divide it up and use 2-2-2, or you can just have one person represent you. Okay? But you'll get a minute after we finish all of the discussion to figure that out amongst yourselves. We'll be addressing the following topics. They're listed over here on the board so you can kind of see where we're going. That's kind of your roadmap over there. Moral agency, the role of government, individual rights versus community rights, and financial impact. This is not working well. Okay, Tara Tarbett, I did not put them down in order of where they're seated, so you'll just have to figure it out. They've got name tags up there. Tara Tarbett was born in White Plains, New York. She grew up in New York and Connecticut. She graduated from Horace Greeley High School in Chappaqua, New York, and attended BYU. She was a preschool teacher and worked as a freelance graphic artist for 8 years before moving to Highland in 1990. She served on the PTA. She is currently serving as a county delegate. She is married to Brian Tarbett, and they have 5 wonderful children and 1 grandchild, who Tara is excited to meet next month. Mike Brady is a man of few words, at least when it comes to writing a bio. He was born in Pomona, California. He also grew up in Kennewick, Washington. He came to Utah to go to BYU, where he earned an MBA. He works at a Utah County software company as a VP of sales. He's married and has 3 kids. Russell Skousen was born in Fontana, California. He majored in political science at Brigham Young University, and then he received his Juris Doctorate from the J. Reuben Clark School of Law at BYU in 1991. In 2009, after doing many, many other things, he founded a law firm with Mr. Penny called Skousen and Penny. Russell and his wife, Debbie, have 4 children, and Russell enjoys running, swimming, cycling, snowboarding, golf, books, old movies, and political philosophy. Mike Burns, you guys can all see the names, right? Okay. Mike has lived in many communities in Utah, Alabama, and Arizona. He is a real estate agent and a partner in a wholesale graphic design company that specializes in social media. He has great difficulty categorizing himself politically, but if there were a party of personal responsibility and accepting reality, he would join it. He is the happy father of 8 children and has the best wife in the world. That's what he says.
It's also true.
Dan Campbell lives in Southwest Highland and runs a small web design and marketing business called Infogenics. That was originally all he sent me. So I emailed him back and said, that's it. And this is what he added. He said that I could say this. I asked Dan for a bio, but he was impertinent enough to reply with this. Rather than provide a bio that may influence what people think about me, I'd rather let my words stand on their own merit. The attendees can judge if anything I say rings true based on the merit of content. So there you go. Chad Copier was raised in Highland. His wife was also raised in Highland, and they both live on the same street where they grew up, which is right over here, and in the same house where his wife grew up. He received his law degree from George Mason before he returned home to work in intellectual property. I'm not going to do as much on the moderators. This is Larry Hilton. I'm Kristen Chevrier. And this is Laura Austin. And our... I know. we didn't have to pay for the sound system. So. Yes. Let's see. Our job here is to loosely moderate the discussion. We want to make sure both sides have pretty much equal time. We're not going to be perfect. We're not professionals, but we will do our best, and we are going to do our best to make sure that you don't know which side we're on, unless you already know, and then it's too late. Okay, I was going to say a couple of other things. We have, in the back, we have a question box. If you have questions that you would like to put in, Laura and Ben will be working on gathering those questions and bringing them up here, and we'll try to work them into the discussion. We'll just take them over to, maybe what we should do is copy them and take one to each side. Okay, but I'm just going to talk loud, okay? It'll pick me up, won't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so also in the back, we have these little papers that have websites where people discuss things about things that are happening in Highland. This is one of the issues that's discussed on those websites, but there are others. And also there is, We Are Highland is yours?
wearehighland.org.
Oh, .org, not the Facebook.
No.
Okay, so there's another one that I didn't get on there, and if you want to write it down or if you want to ask me afterwards, it's www.wearehighland.org. Does it need to have the capitals at the beginning?
No.
Okay, so just wearehighland.org. And you can go to any of these or that one and get information. This video that we're taking right now will be on the wearehighland.org site. Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and start with the discussion now. What we'll do, can I try it again? Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to have a coin toss to see which side goes first initially, and then we'll just alternate from there. The topics we're going to be discussing are over here. So as we begin each topic, each side will have 2 minutes to make a statement about that topic, and then we'll just kind of go back and forth in a discussion, friendly, happy discussion between the two sides, and we'll try to make sure that there aren't any, that both sides get an equal shot, and that if there are things that aren't clear, that we help clarify them. But if you have questions, if you notice something that you really have a question about, maybe you can write it down and run it up here, or just come whisper to us or something. Okay, so we'll go ahead and do a coin toss. Who would like to do a coin toss for me? Volunteer? Okay, heads or tails? Or you guys decide, heads or tails? Let them try.
Heads.
I'm not good at this. Heads. Okay, it's heads. Okay, so on the first topic, you guys go first, and then we'll just go back and forth from there. Okay, so the first topic is moral agency, and you know... Oh.
That's right. You can't defer to the second half. Oh.
You must receive the kick.
I see how this is going.
Okay, so Brian is the timer. My husband back there in the back next to the girl in the green.
How long do they have?
2 minutes.
Do you have cards?
No, he'll just wave at me.
No, because if you go over to
You guys have a microphone?
okay with that.
Well, they have like
Just make it short.
It's just Brian's.
You go on there, is that?
Yeah.
Ours.
I'll start when they start.
Okay.
Okay, so I get to talk about moral agency, and there's been a lot said in the community about how this is a community values issue and not a religious issue, and I'd like to address that right now since we're going to go ahead and discuss moral agency. When you come before the judgment bar of God, theoretically you believe in God, He's not going to stand there and tell you, well, let's talk about your life, what you do in your life and your personal life. I'm not going to go into politics, and I'm not going to go into business, okay? The Lord's not going to say that. He's going to ask you about your life in general. So we need to point out that our lives are all about morality. That's what religion is. It's about our morality, our religion, why we do the things we do. From where do we derive our authority And when it comes down to moral agency, the most important thing to remember is that if it's not moral that I do something to one person, what makes it moral that I could get together with a group of friends and then do it to that person? What makes it moral for me to go take from Jed over there against his will? Nothing. If I get together with Mike and Chad and we decide, hey, Jed, we voted that we want your lawnmower, that's not fair, that's not right. The same thing applies at a community level, obviously. And we need to remember that we do have effect on others, but the big issue is whether we're going to, by force, enforce our morality on someone else, or whether we're going to let them choose and then by persuasion try to let them understand and help them understand the right way to go. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, when you're ready.
I think one of the reasons it was suggested to have moral agency as the first topic of discussion was that it's commonly used as a reason to allow the opening of businesses on Sundays, that just what was said, we can't impose our moral content of a law on those who don't agree with the moral content of a law. It's often said that you can't legislate morality as another way of stating that. However, if you look at the laws that we have, by and large, all legislation is based on some morality. And in all legislation, virtually, there are people who agree with it and those who disagree with it. And we cannot have a civilized society where we can only have laws where there's unanimous agreement upon what that law is. And having stores closed on Sunday does not force people to, in essence, keep the Sabbath day holy. There are many things you can do to break biblical standards of Sabbath day observance that don't entail going shopping on Sunday. There are many reasons that are beneficial to a community to have stores closed on Sunday, including just a day where all families can be together doing whatever it is they choose, or recreation and so forth, just having a break from the 24/7 day that we live in most communities in our society today. So it's not a question of imposing our morality, just the opposite.
So now, if you have comments to make, you guys just start taking turns talking and answering each other and just discuss this.
You didn't want to start by rolling through all of them?
No, we're going to do about 15 minutes on the first one, and then we'll start with the second one, 15 more minutes.
So we don't have any sort of a disagreement here. The issue is where to draw the line. Of course, the issue is whose morality are we going to legislate? The issue is which standard of morality are we going to follow? And so I think our point is that the least harm against life, liberty, and property is the standard that we want to hold to. And so I would ask you then, what standard are you going to follow? What percentage of people, what standard are you going to follow for these laws?
Well, I think it's pretty clear from my side that the standard is we follow some truth based on God's laws, as this is a Christian nation. So really what the Christian religions have laid down, I think that's the foundation that our laws are built on, and that's what I'm very comfortable with. I have to tell you, though, I was pretty surprised as I talked to my neighbors about this, and everybody zeroed in on this topic. You can't legislate morality. And I agree that this one is kind of right on the line. You could probably go either way and say, well, this one legislate it, no, this one you shouldn't legislate it. Because there's other examples that are very clear-cut. Murder, of course, we would say, that there's a moral law underlining this, and there's no question this is way over here on this side, right? So I was a bit taken back, and I, as I talked to my neighbors, I realized I was taken back because it's kind of right on the line. But honestly, a lot of the folks I talked to are LDS that said we shouldn't legislate morality, but I kind of got the impression they were saying that because they actually want to go shopping.
You bring up an interesting point, and I agree with the other attorney here on the panel, that all laws are at some level moral. They must be. Not legislating morality is a nice catchphrase, but it's just not realistic. So then, what morality are we basing it on? And when we talk about moral agency and the role of government, why does one group have a right to tell another group that they can't do something that otherwise harms no one? Whether it's telling them they cannot shop on Sunday, or whether it's telling a property owner that he can't have a business open on Sunday. When we look at community standards, which is really, I guess, where it comes down to, and we'll touch this again, whose community standards? Are we different community fundamentally than Cedar Hills or Lehigh or American Fork or Alpine or any of the other communities around us? And if we are, what are those differences, and why here, why us, why take a stand in this particular case? And what if we had 20% Jewish population or 15% Seventh-day Adventist population? Their views are in line with having a Sabbath day, it just happens to be a different one. So why tell them that they can't shop on a day when they otherwise are allowed to, but have to personally restrain themselves on a day when they need to exercise their own personal agency in doing what's right?
If I could exercise moderators and pose a question here. Do any of you see moral issues relating to changing a standard in a community? So you have people that come in, they rely upon a particular standard, and then it's changed. Does that raise moral issues in any of your minds?
Well, moral in the sense that you have a culture, a stable situation, you have sort of a set of norms in place that people have relied upon and made decisions upon, and where you have an instance where, like in our situation, to make something specific, that there seemed to be some, it's almost like thinking, I wonder if we open stores on Sunday, maybe we'll make more money, without much thought to how that would affect the fabric of a community. And it was discussed about the nature of harm, and that's one of the things that we discussed, in talking about the right of the individual to do as the individual chooses, so long as that individual doesn't harm the next person, to paraphrase John Stuart Mill, which is kind of, he's the philosopher of the libertarian. The problem comes in to defining what is harm and who gets to define harm. And in laws related to like Sunday closing and so forth, the harm may not be as immediately evident as in getting away from a law like that, as say if you took out all stoplights and stop signs, you would see a more immediate harm if you did that. But the harm in eliminating Sunday closing laws may not be experienced and noticed for some time, yet the harm is still real.
When it comes to the moral side of this argument, I would argue that more harm is done by legislating Sunday closure. You covered two things. You covered the community tradition. Our tradition of having a law that bans Sunday closures began in 2005, which is fairly recent, at least in my lifetime. I might be old, but to me, 7 years is not a long time. I did too. I went and got the law today, and it was 2005. I was surprised by that. So,
Well, I know before
it was
that,
amended in
the stores were
2006.
closed.
So,
Before that, sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
before that, the stores were closed on
They were.
Sundays because there was a choose your day ordinance,
okay,
and most people
so that
did.
predated.
It moved from one place to another.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
But
when
since-
it changed to Sundays. But before
And they
that, it was,
specified.
you can pick any day you want to be closed, and everybody
but
picks
you've got to be
Sunday.
closed one day, which would make sense. So my argument as far as tradition is simply how long has the tradition been there? And I don't know whether that's a
20
huge
years,
factor or
yes.
not, but when it comes to harm and moral issues, it does boil down to harm in my mind. And who is harmed by our decision to legislate that they be closed on Sunday? What we're doing is we are saying to a property owner, we own 1/7 of your property. We're taking that day for our community good, and you don't get to use it on that day. And in my mind, taking 1/7 of someone's possessions is significant harm. Now, personally, I wish and hope that everyone who owns commercial property chooses to close on Sunday. I mean, when I get requests to work on Sundays, to show homes or whatever, it's amazing. My schedule's completely booked on Sundays, from 6 in the morning until midnight. It's remarkable. I look at my calendar and it's scheduled out all day long. And that's simply a decision I make. And I hope that every business does. But it's not my role to be able to say to you or to anybody else, I want 1/7 of your property, because I think it's better for everybody else. Because there might be a harm in the future if we don't do that, but that's undefined. Whereas the theft of 1/7 is clearly defined in my mind.
I just want to read part of the findings of a borough in Paramus, New Jersey, Paramus, the New Yorker. Paramus, New Jersey is a heavily populated area very close to New York City, where they have had for years a Sunday closing law. And it's one of the only other places in the country where there's a Nordstrom's that's closed on Sunday. And here's some of their findings of fact and declarations as to why they believe the Sunday closing law was important. One of the things was they said the conduct of such Sunday businesses by some tends to compel all businesses to remain open every day of the week for long hours, thereby resulting in the physical and moral debasement of the persons directly concerned with their operation and impinging upon the peace and quiet and rest of the residents of the borough. And I recall a number of years ago, not too long ago, there was a grocery store in Utah County that for years had been open, not open on Sunday, and they made the announcement, we can't compete, we've got to open on Sunday. And what happens with Sunday opening is, while there are those who then choose to shop at those stores on Sunday, there are employees that, as a condition of their employment, have to work on Sunday. And you may say, well, they don't have to take a job at a place that makes them work on Sunday. Well, sometimes easier said than done. And there are those who seek out jobs where they can go to church or do other things on Sunday. And in Highland, if we allow Sunday openings, that will reduce those businesses where our youth and others can get employment, where they could feel safe, they won't be compelled to work on Sunday.
Yeah, I'd just like to say really quick that every single person that's employed in Highland chooses to work in Highland, and every single person that is employed outside of Highland chooses to work outside of Highland. It's sort of non sequitur, as they say. It doesn't force them to work on Sunday, just the fact that businesses choose to open on Sunday.
But why do they choose to work in Highland?
Why does who choose to work
Why
in
do
Highland?
people who work in Highland choose to work in Highland?
Ask every single person that works in Highland.
Right, but okay.
I mean, you really do have to ask them. If the question is, why did Walmart locate exactly outside of Highland's border, and why did Smith's locate exactly outside of Highland's border? It's because we shop on Sunday. So we want our cake and we want to eat it too.
But part of the reason why this whole thing came up was because the city council said, we'll either have to raise taxes or open on Sundays because we need the revenue. Is it morally right for us to open on Sundays and ask people outside our community to come here and shop to pay for our toys, to pay for our library, to pay for our roads, to pay for our maintenance, to pay for our splash pad, to pay for all those things that we want? I don't know if that's really morally right. And I think when those businesses came in, some of those businesses came here because they were closed on Sundays. Some of those franchises will have to be open. They don't have that choice. Once this goes into effect, if it goes into effect that we open on Sundays, Great Clips will have to be open. How long will Great Clips stay here? So in effect, we're picking on some of those stores that will have to be open on Sunday that our community may not be able to support, may not be able to help keep open by our shopping on Sundays. Maybe they'll leave.
Okay, maybe just one more comment from you guys on this, or do you have anything else to say on this, or should we move on to the next?
We can move on. We went first, so it's better to move on.
Okay. Did you have one more comment?
Well, I just wanted to add the difficulty with basically the first three topics are really the same topic, but it's the topic that gets talked about the most.
Okay.
Alexis de Tocqueville, in his famous commentary on America, Democracy in America, he noted in there that he said, the visitor to America will see that the first thing you notice about America is their Sunday closing laws. He said that was a characteristic of America that was most noticeable to him as a visitor from Europe. So, in my mind, becoming more like Europe has not been a good thing for America.
Okay, so
Or Highland.
can I just have a quick chance to rebut, and then you guys can have the last word? Well, I don't know if I want to really rebut that statement, but the thing that made America great was that we protect the rights of the minority. We protect the rights of the individual. And we ought to remember that a lot of us in this community find ourselves in a very, very significant majority here that is a minority across the country. And we were actually kicked out of this country once as members of the LDS Church. And so I would think that we'd be very interested in protecting the right of the minority. And, community values in Detroit is that some people want Sharia law there. This is why we want to focus on a role of government that is very, very limited, because government is not reason. Community values are not reason. They are force. And this is George Washington, I'm paraphrasing. Community values are not reason, they are force. They are not eloquence, they are force. They are like fire, they are a dangerous servant and a fearful master. So the fact that we would have a community value to allow businesses to choose whether they would be open on Sunday, I think says a lot about our values as a community and that we respect people's decisions.
I don't think this country was made great because we respected the rights of the minority. I think it was made great because minorities, the races, were respected and allowed to grow in this country, which is a different topic than people who have the minor view or opinion were respected. I think that it's essential for the values of this country, which are based on religion. I think it's essential for those to stay in the public square. And right now, this country is moving to a position where people who are non-religious, their fundamental values are taking center stage in the public square. If we change our value system from a religious-based one or a community value-based one like this community, if we swap those values out and change towards a consumer value system or a politically correct value system, I think we will lose our identity in the whole mess. And that's somewhat what I think is happening in the rest of the country is the value system's being swapped out, and we're talking about the need for diversity. What's wrong with us having diversity? What's wrong with us being a people or a class that wants to have our values retained and our values protected? I don't think there's anything of better worth than us keeping our value system. A lot of the folks that are pushing their value system that doesn't have a religious undertone or foundation, I can't figure out what their values are. They may have no values. They're just saying that so somewhere you have to point to a value system. Even a friend of mine who's atheist, I say, how do you know right from wrong if you don't believe in God? And he says, well, my parents taught me. Well, what did they believe in? They believed in God. Well, eventually you could trace your value system back to something. But when we start to walk away from our value system, I think we're going to be in big trouble.
I don't think, sorry.
Go ahead and say what you want to say, and then I'm wondering if maybe we should just go through the rest of them and do the 2, 2, 2, 2, and then talk. Do you want to?
Yeah, because we're really kind of skipped to the third topic on that discussion of the individual versus majority.
Chad,
I'd also like a chance to address the religious issue, because that's not on the board. I mean, if we're going to talk about our religious values.
Moral agency. What's the religious? I actually wanted to keep religion out of it.
Yeah.
That was actually my plan.
Wrong topic for that.
I think there are valuable arguments that have nothing to do with religion. So I wanted to keep religion out of it. That was intentional.
Let's just move on.
I want to address really quickly the issue of what the community standard is and what the community morality is. We wanted to maintain our identity or the core morals. Well, government laws don't dictate to you what your morals are. You, as individuals, dictate to yourselves what your morals are, and to your children and to your community. Laws can reflect a community's moral, but they can't instill a community moral. By insisting on hanging onto a law that the community morals have rejected because the people are no longer thinking in that way, does no good for anybody. And a community standard is how the community acts, not what the government forces that community to do. If people don't shop on Sunday, the stores won't be open on Sunday. If the people, it doesn't make sense to stay open. There won't be any revenue.
It actually doesn't matter. There's a few franchises in Highland, Domino's, I should have brought my list. I think there's 4 or 5 of them at least in Highland, that it doesn't matter if our ordinance says that they can be open, their franchise agreement says they must be open. Has nothing to do with whether they make, it's corporate policy and it's their corporate identity. Just like we're trying to defend our Highland identity, that corporation is trying to defend its identity,
Sure.
and those stores will be open.
If no one shops there, they'll have exactly one guy sitting there all day twiddling his thumbs.
They'll close down.
They'll
close down.
They'll move out.
Why? They won't have any different revenue than they have now.
Yes, they will. They'll have less revenue because they have to support that store. They have to pay for the people to be in there. They have to pay for the lights. They have to pay for Wendy's or Arctic Circle. They have to pay for that food prep, whether there's anybody there or not. They have to pay. They are going to have costs that are associated with that day. And if they don't make enough money on those days, they will end up having to move out. Domino's will make it. I know Domino's will make it,
But that's assuming their corporate policies are inflexible. This is a great example of why we should go for persuasion instead of force, because if we were able to, everyone in Highland and in Cedar Hills and in Alpine, because I admit that it's the whole area, we're a congruous community. But if we all worked on persuasion and we decided to persuade them in the way similar that we were, well, I won't get into this example yet, but anyway, if nobody shopped there on Sunday, cooler heads would have to prevail. Somebody up the chain's going to go, hey, this Domino's is going to have to close, or we're going to change our corporate policy. We can make an exception. I mean, you're the attorneys. Couldn't they figure that out, how to write some exception to that? They certainly could. I mean, I'm in business. We change agreements all the time. So that's sort of not a... Go ahead.
I've just been talking with and emailing back and forth with some of these corporate offices, and some of them will cut a little Some of them won't cut any, they just say, no, you're
But
open.
the point is they wouldn't do that unless they observed it. And the reason that they don't observe it is because people shop there on Sunday.
Can I say something real quick? Just in response to that, wouldn't it be a fantastic experience if at Domino's corporate headquarters they said, this location is open every Sunday for the last 5 years and we've had 0 sales. What is different about that community?
Domino's will have sales because Pleasant Grove closed down. No.
But that is a symptom.
But they actually could sue the corporation, but I think it might be easier to, because I know that there was a store in Lehigh that did that. Yes, I think you're right. I think we're drifting.
Well, businesses being open is the symptom. Okay, that's the symptom of the problem. They wouldn't be open if there were not people shopping on Sunday. And so the idea is to help people to not shop on Sunday by persuasion, to help them observe the Sabbath or keep other community values that we want to. That is Christianity, to try and persuade your neighbor about how they should behave to be righteous. If we farm it out to the law, if we farm it out to the police, we're not doing our part. That's the travesty here. We have such an opportunity to help other people.
Okay, I think maybe we should move on to another topic.
Yeah.
So how about if you guys take 2 minutes and talk about the role of government, and then you take 2 minutes and talk about the role of government, and then individual and community rights. You guys can talk first about individual and community rights, and then we'll come to financial impact. Okay? And then we'll spend the rest of the time till 8:15 just discussing things, and I would like, there are some questions over here, so I guess maybe we can just pass them, let you guys all just look at the question and see if you can address it. Okay.
Okay, well, here we go. Not my strong suit. However, written down some notes and thought of some things. One of the things I've written down is in the absence of government, people will violate each other's rights. That's just the way it is. If we don't have a government, if we don't have somebody that sets down laws and rules, then other people are going to run over other people's rights, and they're not going to care about it because there won't be any consequences. There won't be any reason to not do that. As far as that's my other paper. You snagged it. This is out of the Borough of Paramus again, and I really like what they wrote in their ordinance. They said the borough is a suburban community whose primary consideration is the promotion and maintenance of a satisfactory living environment for the present and prospective inhabitants of the borough and the preservation of the public health, safety, and welfare of the municipality and its inhabitants. That's what the job of our city government is to protect the inhabitants, the people who live here and the people who work here, not necessarily the people who want to run a business here, because not everybody who runs a business here actually lives here. So I think that's the role of Highland City government, is to protect our rights as citizens. Why we moved here, that's what they're here to protect, is why we moved here.
Yes, government exists to referee when our rights bump up against each other. That's absolutely true. Whose individual rights are harmed by somebody else having their store open on Sunday? If I choose to stay home and not shop, if I own a business and choose to not open it, that has no effect on my neighbor in the short term. They can choose to come or not go or stay home or whatever they want to do. And so, yes, government is important to adjudicate disputes between two people where their rights are being asserted or their rights are being assailed. This isn't that case. No one individual is harmed by Country Corner being open on Sunday, which it already is, by the way. So is that our community standard or not? It seems to me that the role of government is to fairly provide rules that everyone can agree with. The Country Corner being open on Sunday, the country club being open on Sunday, home-based businesses being able to conduct business. These are all exceptions to what we're calling the community standard. We will not have another gas station convenience store open in Highland until this rule changes, because we're already telling the next guy, you don't have the same rule apply to you as the guy that's already here. Hart's is opening right on the border of Highland, and I don't think that's a mistake. The role of government is to provide a level, even playing field so everyone has similar opportunities, and to divide when people bump up against each other's rights. In this case, the government is picking winners and losers, and they're handicapping certain businesses over others.
I don't think that's the role of the city government. City government, I think, is plain and simple for me. It starts with the infrastructure and maybe adds some services on top of that. If we need some refereeing on rights, that's probably a different scale of government that we talk to. But today we're talking about the city. So I look at what I expect this city to do for my tax dollars, and infrastructure is first. I want my water and sewer working, and I want the roads working. I want us to keep an eye, as citizens, keep an eye on the city. If we start getting gangs in here and stuff, we may have to pay more taxes to keep our police services going, to chase that away, because that's something important to us. But I start there with infrastructure and services. I would ask, whose rights are being impeded by keeping the stores closed? I don't see anybody's rights being hurt. They can go across the street, not too far away, and they can still do what they have to do. There is no right that says you have to have a store within 3 or 4 city blocks of where you live. There's no right. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry.
So you can comment, and then remember we were going to.
Yeah, I thought we were flipping. Yeah, I just misunderstood that. I thought we were going first on the next one, so I thought he was making comment on the first one, and I totally got messed up, and that's my fault. They should have got a smarter guy on this side.
So was that individual?
Did you have anything else to say on the
Financial impact now. So what we're going to do then?
They didn't, wait.
Wait, I didn't know we were on individual versus community rights.
Oh, okay.
Is that
Role
what
of
you were
government.
doing?
Role of
No.
government.
Mike messed up.
I messed up.
Okay, rebutting, but that's
Oh, so
okay.
it's his fault.
I didn't have a right to do that.
So
I was
if you
afraid
guys
it was
want to
mine.
say
You guys are
something,
doing
that's
awesome,
fine.
by the way.
Oh, I was going to move on to the next 2-minute thing.
Okay.
Do
Well,
that.
no, I'm not, I want to comment on.
Oh, so should we stay with the
You
original?
can tell this is a real community discussion, right?
Professional.
Because we just want
We
to.
can do roll, that's rule 1 federal of government, I don't mind, whatever. I just thought, I misunderstood how we were doing it. So,
I just want to comment on the observation that some businesses in our community are open on Sunday. They're, under the law, when zoning is changed and so forth, and your use, say these businesses were open on Sunday before the law changed. Therefore, they're grandfathered in, because that's respecting the property rights that they had to start with. When you change a regulation, a zoning regulation, you can't take that away. I said, if Cedar Hills next week banned Sunday openings, every store that's open on Sunday could continue to open on Sunday. The new stores to Cedar Hills could not open on Sunday. It would seem very unfair, but it'd also be unfair to deprive those stores who came into the community relying upon that law to then have that taken away from them. So to cite that as a reason that the law is somehow unjust actually misunderstands where the justice is.
so should we segue into individual and community rights? Is that okay? I think it's important to cover. Well, he did talk about preserving property rights, and I think that goes to individual and community rights if we go there.
Sure.
And so let's talk about what individual and community rights are. As a community, we have a right not to harm one another, not to be harmed by each other. And if we're going to talk about the rights of property, if we choose to have businesses forced to be closed on Sunday, we are harming every property owner whose property is eligible to be open on Sunday, or to be a commercial business, or to be an enterprise of any sort. And so if we choose that our community says, hey, the community rights are we don't open on Sundays. And so then we ask the question, well, who is harmed when we're open on Sundays? Well, it's the morality of our children. It's the example that we're setting. But quite frankly, the example we're setting is not the issue. It's the personal example, not the community. If we say our community rights overpower the individual owners of this property, then we're saying that example we want to set for our children is that we can force other people to comply with what we believe. And I don't believe in force. There's a simple solution. In real estate, every property is always for sale. There's a price at which I will sell my home that I love, but it's for sale if somebody has enough money. So if we truly believe that every business, our community should be closed on Sunday, then those of us who believe that should band together, raise the funds, purchase the properties, and in every single lease, we simply write, you're not allowed to operate on Sundays. And we have corrected the problem. We have proven what the true community value is. But right now, we're saying we want to use our political power. We're not willing to put our money where our mouth is. We just want to use our political power to impose our will on the individual property owner.
Mike, are community values for sale? No, that's a rhetorical question.
That's a rhetorical question.
No, here,
It's a question.
I think you understate the harm to the property owner who wishes not for his business to be open on Sunday, who is right next to a business owner who wants to be open on Sunday. Like that was statuted in the borough of New Jersey. You're almost compelled to survive to open on Sunday because of the competition. But let's talk about the Constitution for a minute. The Constitution of our country actually is an effort, a unique effort, and I would add a very successful effort at balancing the rights of a community to set standards versus the rights of individuals. All of us at one time or another are a minority and are in a majority. Rarely are we, nobody for their entire life is always a minority in every instance. In fact, when the Constitution, as originally passed, there was not the Bill of Rights, you know that. Those who were concerned that this democratic republic would trounce on the rights of the individual, say, yes, we'll pass this, but you right after have to do this Bill of Rights. But the initial impetus behind the Constitution was to protect the rights of the community to set standards and then carve out certain defined exceptions to the right of the community to set standards. The reason the community sets standards is because people have differing views as to what is moral. People get their morality from different things. Many people get their morality from religion, others through philosophy, others just, this feels right to me. That's why you get the standard from the community.
When it comes to the rights, though, you're arguing for the businesses that are already closed on Sunday. But that's a protectionist argument for the existing business against a competitor. You'd like to protect them from the others because somehow they're more morally correct because they were willing to come here under the different rules. But what about the property owner that's owned his property since 1972 that can't sell it to the business who wants to be open to Sunday? We've hamstrung him.
You can.
But they won't buy it because they can't be open on Sunday.
It doesn't preclude him from selling it to them.
But he's owned that property long before we as a community decided to go ahead and say, hey, you can't do this with your property. So, I mean, who do we protect?
Well, actually, we can get into the nuances of grandfathering. Yeah. I can tell you, if you buy a piece of property that has a grandfather right, that grandfather right goes with the property. So that's not actually a correct.
Well, no, the property, I'm talking about the existing property. It's slated for that use, but then we changed the law of how.
Can we move on to financial impact, and then we'll discuss all these. And we also have these questions that have come in. I think what we've decided up here is we're just going to read you the questions because otherwise I don't think they're going to get answered one at a time. Sure. And then you can talk about it. Go ahead and talk about financial
first, second, yeah.
Okay.
So I went to the city council meeting where this was discussed for what seemed like for hours. And
It was actually fun.
5 hours? No. I wasn't convinced that the city gave us compelling evidence that this is even that there's even correlating the Sunday opening with financial issues. It's clear to me that the city has a problem with their finances. I'm in business, been in business a long time. I spent a lot of hours on the city's website going through their income statements and balance sheets. It's clear to me we got a problem. It's absolutely clear to me that this issue is unrelated. This issue of Sunday businesses is unrelated to the budget. It's not going to solve it, and so I would keep those separate. We do need to talk about, at some point, what we need to do as a city to fix the financial problem here. We're getting over our head, and ironically, I think it's because we didn't follow our community values on fiscal, conservative fiscal practices. I think that's why we're in this mess. But I just don't think the Sunday openings is going to solve it in the least bit.
I think we can all agree that unfortunately our city's in a financial position that is unfortunate. And whether or not Sunday openings solves that problem isn't really relevant, in my opinion. I mean, we can say, hey, we're open for Sundays, but any business is going to come in here, it's going to take years. I mean, a business doesn't plop down and fire up things right away. So we've got a multi-year problem that we're going to have to deal with either way. When it comes down to it, the question is, what do we want to represent? Do we want to represent persuasion and encouraging our neighbors to adhere to these community values? Or do we want to legislate and force people to follow what we think is right? I mean, it's interesting. There is a strategic advantage to a business that is closed on Sunday. In Larry Miller's biography, I don't know if you've read that or not, but when they were talking about making it against the rules for dealerships to be open on Sundays, he actually argued against it. So that, because he said, hey, my competitive advantage is being closed on Sundays because I'm able to get better salespeople. People will shop with me and not shop with the other dealerships because they know that's our standard. And he felt like it was a competitive advantage to be closed on Sunday. And if that really is our community value, it would be a true test of that value if we allowed businesses to be open on Sunday. Because we'd have the opportunity to frequent the stores that are closed on Sundays as a symbol of what we believe we should do. So, I'll take financial impact out of the equation, quite frankly. I think it's too far down the road.
Okay, just one comment. All car dealerships in Utah are closed on Sundays.
He lost.
What do you mean he lost?
They passed a law that all car dealerships have to be closed on Sundays. Larry
Actually,
Miller
I think
argued.
it's that they have to be closed one day a week,
Right.
but they're all closed on
But
Sundays.
Larry Miller's argument was that he didn't want that to pass because he had a competitive advantage by being closed on Sunday, by being the dealer who was different. And so he lost that competitive advantage when that change came into play.
Okay, so what we're going to do, how you wanted to respond.
Well, I think we should talk, I mean, the reason we have financial impact as a fourth topic, because this ordinance was basically sold to the community, or at least 3 members of the city council.
Well, I don't want to abandon the field on this, so.
As the reason for doing it was not oppressed minorities who want to shop on Sunday or open for business on Sunday. It was because this was the answer to our financial difficulties. Either we open on Sunday or we have a 100% tax increase.
We got both in the end, I guess.
Well,
We got both. Oh, not done. Not done.
So,
I mean, really, there was little thought into how the Sunday being open on Sunday would actually impact the bottom line. It was, I mean, I don't know what the real reason was, but I will be shocked if we're open on Sundays and we notice any difference in our bottom line for the better.
Let's talk about some real opportunities lost. Both Smiths and Walmart wanted to be here. They're not here because of this rule, at least in part. Each one of those generates one $400,000+ for its community in annual revenue, and the other a little over $600,000 per year in annual revenue. I'm also on the city's transportation committee, and we looked at the numbers. We looked at the budget we had for roads, and we realized pretty quickly that those numbers didn't match. Our current budget for roads doesn't even cover what it would cost minimally to maintain the roads at their current levels. We can't even do that. So we went back to the city council. We said we need more money. We can't tell you how to allocate, $1 for $15 worth of stuff. It's just, whatever you want to do at that point. There's no point. And we said, if you want us to really address the road issue, we need more money. And then one of the proposals that came up was the sales tax. The fact is, if this rule wasn't in place, we'd have either Smith's or Walmart, or possibly both in our community, generating at least $400,000+ in sales tax revenue. If the rule changes, perhaps that doesn't happen overnight. You're absolutely correct. But maybe a different box store comes into play. And maybe, we don't know what it's going to be, but we do know that by having this law over the past 3 years, we've lost out on the opportunity of at least $500,000 each year, which would have fixed the hole in the road budget. I'm telling you, because I looked at the numbers.
I'd like to allocate my time to Jess if he'd come up. He was there and he could tell us what the real story is on these big box guys that had an opportunity to come here.
Just a fact checker.
Walmart never made an application to come to Highland, never was contractually obligated to a piece of property, so that's a moot issue. They never had a decision to come here. Smith's, however, did. Smith's had a conditional use to build their store here in Highland. After they had received that conditional use, with the conditions of Sunday closing and reduced hours of operation 7 to 11, Kroger's bought Smith's out. During that buyout, Kroger shut down all building for Smith's for about a period of 3 years. They made a decision later on to build a marketplace, the superstore. The acreage in Highland wasn't large enough to accomplish that.
Thank you.
I just think it's fair to have some history, and Jess knows the history.
I think it is important to say that the city council, as I understand it, they want the Sunday closing lifted so they can bag the big deals and get all 7 days worth of revenue. I don't think their math is based on just getting the 7th portion of the revenue. I think they want the big stores to get it all.
No, they definitely want
Right.
There's no question.
But
it's the other 6 days they're really after.
That's right. It's the other 6 days that we're really after. But I knew that was some of the history. I didn't know all the specific details. That I don't think we've lost everybody just because of Sunday closing. So.
And I also think you're making some assumptions as to why they located where they did. I mean, unless you know that they cited, Sunday, but for Sunday closing laws, we would be in Highland. I don't know if that case has ever been made.
Barely, I'd say at least in part.
So it's my understanding that Cedar Hills did not have a law on Sunday closure until the Walmart came in, and then they had to have a law that allowed it, because then it came up.
Right.
So I think all of these are sort of moot points. We don't know what will happen, but we do know that no box store that requires to be open on Sunday will locate here. We know at least that, right?
They might not locate here anyway. We are not the shopping mecca of Utah. People do not come to Highland to shop. We
I think
usually
you
go.
two are in total agreement.
You guys should come over. You and Mike should come sit on our side,
There's
because
no
that's what we're
reason to
saying.
come to Highland whether there's big stores here or not. Well, it's nice we have a Walmart up the road and there's Walmart down in American Fork and stuff, but we don't have the store. We don't have a Nordstrom's. I don't think we'll ever get a Nordstrom's in Highland. Some of those other big fancy stores. I don't think this is. I think we like to have our conveniences, but not. We don't come here. We go. Some people go to Park City.
I'd like to cede my time to Kristen.
Quick response to Coop.
Oh, I'd like to cede it to you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Okay. Did you not have a comment? Well, I want to ask these questions that people have. So we're going to have Laura read the questions, and then do you think 1 minute for each side to answer?
Let's
Or
hear the
should we
question.
just take it?
Let's see the last one.
Okay, let's do that.
Question about
Rights. In America today, there are lots of rights people claim that aren't truly rights. Is the right to a bedroom community that has nighttime closure and Sunday closure a right?
Did you understand the question? Okay.
One word answers.
Yes or no?
Repeat the last part of the question.
Yeah. Is the right to a bedroom community that has nighttime closure and Sunday closure a real right?
Well, as we discussed in the individual versus the community has a right to set standards subject to the rights of the individual, and that's set forth in the Constitution, our laws, and voting, and so forth. There's been a lot written in our country, though, about the oppression of minorities on community standards and community rights. I mean, it's like our Constitution with the Bill of Rights tried to balance that, but we're constantly pushing back and forth in our country to find the right balance. Now, can we say, though, that, you know, I think our position now is that maybe individual rights have kind of suppressed community rights in many areas that are not necessarily desirable.
Well,
Okay, these aren't Laura's questions, you guys can look at these guys.
One of the things I really liked about Highland growing up here were the large lot sizes. And that was something that we were told over and over again was going to be a hallmark and a fixture in the community. Anyone that's been here more than 20 years knows that. But there are guys sitting in this room that decided to change that character fundamentally. Sometimes the character changes because of the people that are there. Sometimes the way that people act fundamentally changes things. We got to decide what we're going to impose on others, right? The nature of my 1 acre lot is much different today than it was 20 years ago when I grew up here, or 30 years ago. Now I'm getting old. And yeah, we can talk about whether it's going to be, and that's kind of why we're here. What's the balance going to be? But do we have a right to that? Well, if enough people get together and say, "Hey, we want our community to be a certain way," you can always do that through what was it called?
An ordinance?
Well, no, not a city ordinance. through the referendum and the different. There are ways to do it, but then again, we're about to find out in a few weeks here where the majority of our community sits on this. That's the beauty of it, right?
Some communities allow no business. Some communities require businesses to close at night. Some communities are only zoned for certain types of business. If it's based on majority vote, is this decision any different?
I think there's a big logical fallacy here. Argument ad populum, or argument from antiquity. Just because we've been doing it since the beginning of time doesn't make it right. Just because everybody's doing it doesn't make it right. And democracy is generally 2 wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner, or 2 Mormons and a Jew voting on what days to open it.
Can I ask a follow-up question just on that question? We seem to be talking about, the word zoning has come up several times. And I'm wondering, in the panel's view, is there a fundamental difference between this particular law and some other type of zoning law? And as a corollary to that, is zoning okay? Or should zoning be done away with altogether?
Zoning's okay, in my opinion. We want, at any community, you can choose how that community's going to look. We look different than Park City. Park City has higher taxes, and they have different streets and different things, right? All of our communities are different, and it's based on what we choose. So we do this process. We'll find out in a month, what the citizens think about this. But it is good for the community to make ordinances and laws. What about businesses locating close to residential houses? Do we as a community want them to shut down at 11 o'clock so citizens can sleep? Yeah, I think that's probably reasonable that we'd say. So I think reasonable things we should talk about and agree, and that's how we want our city to be. We love this city, and it's because we all get along fairly well, and we have rule of law here, and we have some nice, streets and boulevards, and it's clean. This city's clean, right, compared to a lot of other cities. There's a lot of reasons to say this city is great, and we want to keep it that way. So I think we do have the right to lay down ordinances and laws.
Actually, I want to respond to Dan's response to the first question about, what the question was citing a number of instances of communities setting their standards. So the answer is yes, they're the same thing. If one community allows Sunday opening or limits hours and another community does something the opposite, it's the same thing. I don't see how Dan's reference to a couple of logical or informal fallacies really fits. Because majority, a logical fallacy is when you say something is right because the majority thinks it, unless, of course, it is right because the majority thinks it. In the case of voting, that's a correct application. When you say, oh, what's the best product, and you say, oh, a majority of people say it's the best product, that is probably a fallacy to say if it is the best product. So I just wanted to make a distinction there.
Okay, yeah, so I think that the issue is, of course, again, who decides what the morality is, and so that's why I would say we lean to less government rather than more government, because we're all flawed when we determine reality for other people.
To answer your question, the first question I believe was, is this any different than other zoning laws? And I would say no. I think that's my favorite answer to that. I think it's exactly a zoning law, but zoning laws are intended to prevent harm. And so you create buffer zones of different types of things that you allow in those areas, and you create a community through zoning that protects the well-being and the life that we all enjoy. For example, I can't run a nuclear power plant in my backyard because that puts my neighbors at risk, and that would be a bad thing. And so as a community, I think we can agree that I shouldn't have a nuclear power plant.
I would kind of like that, though.
Well,
Because you're,
my name is Mr. Burns, after all. But I can't run that. And so it is very similar. The question is, when we come back to harm, who is harmed by a business being open on Sunday? The individual that is harmed is the person who chooses to frequent that business on Sunday, in my opinion. And I know that's a moral call on my part, but I believe the individual who chooses to shop is harmed. I wish they wouldn't. But I also think that we're imposing harm upon others if we force them to take a decision.
I think this is a good example of decentralized self-government. We really don't want a central government telling us what to do on all these issues, do we? I mean, this is decentralized self-government. We elected these city officials. Many of us didn't like what they decided, so we put it to referendum. I think this is fantastic. But there's other issues that will come into play if we use this conversation as the example or as the primer. I mean, today we're talking about Sunday closing. Tomorrow it could be liquor stores. After that, it's pornography back on the shelves at the checkout stands. And we go on and on and on from that perspective. And mostly, we get into those conversations because we want to protect the choice of the one person at the expense of the community.
Next question.
We have another question.
Benjamin Franklin said, "Only a virtuous people are capable of freedom. As nations become corrupt, they have more need of masters." How does this change stop the progression of other businesses, such as more adult businesses, from coming into the fray? How does this change in the law protect our community standards and safety of our citizens?
Well, it's basically your final statement there. Well, the slippery slope argument, right? Again, if no one frequents them, then they can't make money and they won't stay open.
We've got a great property rights example. Yeah, sure. So I've got one of these, and Mike has one of these. We drove past an adult bookstore in Shiprock.
Yeah.
We drove back past an adult bookstore in Shiprock, New Mexico, and it was really awesome because right next to the adult bookstore was exercising their right to property, right, by selling whatever they wanted. And by the way, the parking lot was vacant, and I think largely because the next door neighbor had exercised his property rights by erecting a massive billboard that said, "Jesus is watching you." And it was awesome. And we took a picture of it, and it was a beautiful picture of Jesus, and there was no one in the parking lot. And Mike's got another example of how to handle pornography, which, by the way, already is in Highland.
Well, we could pass laws to control that through other things, but then that's a free speech issue. Pornography, when I was traveling this was in the olden days before the internet. And so now people just do whatever they want there. So those stores may be irrelevant. But at the time, I was in St. George, stopped off to go to church, and they were having a meeting that shocked me. They were talking about how they were going to boycott this business. And I thought, this is during church hour. Can you do this? And so I followed the issue a little bit. And what they'd done, this was in Mesquite, the actual business. It was a pornography business, and they were doing their thing. And the community decided, hey, we don't want this to happen. And so we're going to shame our neighbors into not going. And so they set up a watch at the store. Everyone who walked in, they took down the license plate number, and each week in the paper, it was published. This car shops at this pornography store. And they were out of business within 3 months.
Yeah, but that's ridiculous that would even get that far in this community.
It is. It's totally ridiculous.
It's totally ridiculous that we would, and that's why I say this is all relevant, because we don't want to get to where we have to put a billboard or pay it. We don't want to get that far, right?
Right, and it's a ridiculous argument, because the slippery slope will go to wherever. And once again,
you guys are arguing property rights, and really what you're saying is market forces should trump laws.
Actually,
and I don't, if I'm hearing that wrong, but that's what I'm hearing is, you guys should leave everything to market forces, and I'm saying, no, we have rights to speak as a community, like we are in a month, that trump market forces.
And actually, we're not arguing straight market forces, although when we talk about the role of government and individual community rights, we talk about that.
But you are when you talk property rights. You're saying I have property rights, so therefore let the market decide.
But our summary is this. If the individuals, if we want to mask the symptom in our community, which is never stopping and shopping on Sunday and everything else, all an ordinance like this does is masks the symptom. If we want to go after the cause, we'll work to persuade our neighbors, we'll be long-suffering, we're going to be patient, we're going to help our neighbors understand the benefits that come from not frequenting businesses on Sunday.
But with all due respect, it's not our neighbors that will frequent these places. It's people, I mean, you'll drag everybody from, south of the valley up here to see some bad store, right? We don't want that stuff coming here.
They're not going to.
Okay.
They're not going to. Nobody's proposing opening a pornography store. In fact, that can't be out of that.
Well, but actually, I mean, it seems like though you are saying that that's okay.
Yeah.
If the property owner wanted to open
what a great opportunity to go find some new converts. I mean, is preaching the gospel, honestly, is preaching the gospel just handing out Book of Mormons and hoping that does the trick? We need to go talk to these people. I don't necessarily want to.
I'm just saying, it's not a slippery slope. It's not a slippery slope.
Can we let Russ say, and then we're going to just read the rest of the questions, and then we'll let you guys respond to them if you choose to in your closing remarks.
I love it how these, informal fallacies are thrown out and then misapplied. A slippery slope means that you would do one thing and that would lead down the slippery slope to something else. However, your comments suggest that given the same reasoning for allowing stores to be open on Sunday, you would also think although you would disagree, you would think the property owner's right to have a porn shop on his property in Highland. You think it would be okay for, I guess, maybe to have a casino in Highland if it was permitted by $1,500. It's a slippery slope in that you're saying the principles that lead to taking this position would never lead to the position down the slippery slope. But
okay.
Yes.
We
already have.
You
Everyone,
guys have been talking a lot on this one, by the way. I just want to point that out.
we have both sides.
No, she's.
No, this
We've overdone it.
side on this particular question, you guys talked a lot.
Well, that's only because we gave the pornography examples, though, which helped them.
Will you guys yield us some of your time on that question?
Very quickly, say what you want to say, and then I want to move on to these
Yeah, 'cause we should
questions
get
and the
questions.
closing arguments, okay?
Fair enough. I just want to say it is a slippery slope because the fact is it's on the referendum. We're here, we're talking about what's should be done, what rights do we impose on others. It's much easier to make the argument that pornography in your community harms the community as a whole than having a store open on Sunday.
I'm just going to read these last few questions. We won't address them, but then you can choose whether or not to address them in your closing arguments. So this one says, my daughter works at Wendy's. She is very grateful not to have to work on Sunday. If Sunday opening is allowed, she will be forced to work on Sunday. You might say that she can find a job somewhere else. The reality is that it is very difficult to find a job for students that don't work on Sundays. Why should we allow the law to change to force our kids to work on Sunday if they don't want to work? This next one. It seems that the argument in favor of Sunday opening is that the desire of a business to come here and be open on Sunday is more important than the citizens' desire to maintain the environment we chose. Why is it okay for them to impose on us, but they cannot be inconvenienced by our standard? You say that employees can just choose whether or not to accept those jobs. In exactly the same thinking, these businesses can choose whether or not to operate here. The condition is in place in both situations and both are free to choose. The difference is that the employee is not forcing the employer to change his position to work there.
Did we cover all the questions? Did anybody's question not get asked? Okay. All right, so now if you'll just work just a little bit behind schedule, are you guys okay for a couple more minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to give you guys, should we give you 2 minutes to talk and figure out who you want to represent you in the closing arguments and what you want to cover? Brian, do you want to time it for 2 minutes? Okay, and then we'll give each side 6 minutes. Okay? All right. Starting the time.
Majority vote, that sounds fair.
Who wants us to go first? Raise your hand.
This time if we win, can we pick?
What's that?
This time if we win, can we pick?
Can you pick what?
Well, let's
Let's just have the winner be the loser.
Okay, are you guys?
You guys can call it. We called it last time, so call it, yeah.
You called heads?
Yeah.
It's tails.
All right.
Last time, Kristen just said what that means. Let's go ahead and tell us what that means.
Oh, God.
What does that mean?
I think the winner was
Didn't we decide what that means?
Yeah, they get their options.
What is it?
You guys won. No, you were chosen.
Random.
Okay, you choose.
So you choose if you want to go first or second. Ted, who's next?
So they chose that we go first, is that how?
You
You won the mic.
choose first or second.
I've only got like 2 hours of tape, so.
Yeah, we'll go. He's running out of tape. We'll go fast. We'll shorten our comments to 6 seconds.
Apparently it was heads we go first, tails we go first.
I like it. Hey, the bottom line is this. We only have 6 minutes, and I probably won't take that much time. We really, just to be very clear, we took the villainous position here, I think. It's easy to vilify people who want to open stores on Sundays. And that's okay. But what we're arguing is not that, hey, property rights should trump all. What we're arguing is that the development of a community is a symptom of the members of the community. It doesn't define the members of the community. It is merely symptomatic of those people in the community who make up that community. And so if we as a people are the people who don't shop on Sunday and who don't want a casino or a porn shop or whatever in the community, then there will not be one, because businesses locate where there are customers. We're not going to, I don't think we're going to get any sort of business in Highland that's going to draw people from Spanish Fork, no matter what we do. So our perspective is merely that we need to be honest with ourselves. And if we want to build the kind of community that doesn't have stores open on Sundays, we should build it the right way, through individual choice, through persuasion, and through helping people understand the blessing that comes from not having businesses open on Sunday. Secondly, we've talked a little bit about harm when it comes to property rights and everything else. What harm is done? And I don't think we've established the harm other than the slippery slope theory. We haven't really established that anyone is directly harmed if a property owner decides to open his property on Sunday. That's his choice, and hopefully as a community, we can make that a poor choice for that person by not frequenting that business. Finally, even though the financial impact is not immediate, and it's really not a justification to fix our problems with finances this year and to fix our roads that need to be maintained this year, it does open up the opportunity to future investment from other businesses. It opens up the opportunity for a business to come in that says, hey, we only even consider locations that will allow us to be open on Sundays. So they come, they settle here, and all of a sudden they realize that no one here shops on Sunday. Now they may still hire one person to sit at the door so that they're okay with the franchise, and that person can do whatever they want when they sit there. But we as a community determine our values. What is around us is a reflection of our values. The physical state of our community is merely a mirror of our soul. And if we choose to allow that mirror to shine clear, we'll understand who we are. But if we want to mask it and put a nice little painting that's beautiful across that, we can hide the symptom. Our only argument is that we should reveal who we are and stand for what we believe is right, but not force it. Thanks. Does that mean I have 2 minutes?
You guys got 3 minutes left.
Wow. I could go on forever. Where's arguments that strong too? To reiterate a little bit of what he said, I think when we talk, there's a reason why Walmart shares 2 borders of Highland on its property lines. There's a reason why Smith's is right on the border of property line. It's because we in this community need those places to go shop. We are the demand. Demanded more shopping. Excuse me, here we go.
You want me to talk while you take a call?
But do any of us not shop at Smith's or Walmart because they're open on Sunday? Yeah, that's kind of what we're saying here, is we're not going to let businesses come in because they choose that. Yet we're busy giving a bunch of our dollars every week to those very businesses. And again, I hope that none of the businesses choose to open on Sunday. I hope that no one here chooses to shop on Sunday, that they choose to follow their own beliefs and to do it in a way of personal liberty.
So I'd like to just remind us, the reason we got into this mess is because of the debt, which was a majority vote, or the majority of the council. And the debt has really hamstrung us. It's really caused us a problem. We didn't see it coming, and so now we have these decisions. Do we allow businesses open? And that goes to the financial impact, which we're saying probably won't create much of a financial impact immediately, but down the road it probably will have some financial impact. But I'd like to remind us that there's a big difference between allowing a business to do something we consider wrong, which would be to open on Sunday, and then going to our neighbors as a group and telling them, hey, we got into debt, we need more of your property. We're going to tax your property. We're going to raise your property tax. So I sincerely hope that we can all together try and help the city council find ways to cut costs and stop building new buildings or whatever it is that's gotten us into this problem. No clapping, I need more time. I hope that we can all come together on that and help them find creative ways to not spend more of our money, because when we go take each other's property, that's even worse. That's even worse than allowing the property owner over there to be open on Sunday, because we're just taking it from them against their will. You take it from me, I take it from Mike, we take it from Chad. And that's just not right.
Okay, we're just going to go down and spend our 6 minutes each.
Do they
2
still have
minutes
time?
each.
You can't start for another, there you go.
So I want to summarize. I really, this really isn't about the budget. This is about something else. After living in different parts of the country and traveling overseas probably 40 times in the last 2 decades, every time I come home, I am amazed at how great this little piece of the world is. Coming down Timpanogos Highway one night after being at the airport and the sun was going down, it was just spectacular. This place is simply great. There's good people here. This is a safe place. So guys, we gotta remember what we have here. We have something really incredible. Where I grew up and where my mother grew up in West Valley, we've seen a major decline in those towns. Some of the places are simply not safe to go to anymore. It's sad. I don't feel like I can go to the town where I was born. It's just not safe. I'm frustrated with what I see in Salt Lake County, and I don't want to have that happen here. Communities like those allowed their values to erode piece by piece. That's what happened to those communities. And in the end, 25, 35 years later, they didn't notice the change, kind of like I didn't notice I was getting old. They ended up losing their communities. I don't know anybody that lives in the town where I grew up from those days. Everybody's moved away to find something like this. It's ironic to me that people move here because they see something special, something fantastic. They want to be part of this, and then really soon after they start saying, let's change this to be like that place where I came from. My answer to them is, hey, that road you came in on, get in your car and go back the other way. Let's keep this place the way we've got it. Let's keep our standards, our community values the same.
I don't think there's anything wrong with a contract between two parties as long as the two parties agree on that contract. And in essence, our city council represents us as a community, and the businesses that want to come in here represent themselves. If business comes to Highland City and says, we'd like to open a business here, and the city says, great, here's our restrictions, here's what we'd like you to do if you want to open a business here. We want you to have this kind of size sign. We want you to have this much parking area. We want you to have this much stucco and brick on the outside. I don't know what are the other ordinances they have on building codes. And we also want you to be closed on Sunday. And that business says, awesome, we still want to come to Highland, that's great. We'll agree to what you would like us to do and we'll open our business. So in essence, it's a contract between us as well as the businesses. The other thing is we do have a wonderful, wonderful community. Every one of us in this room, up here on this stand, we all believe we have a beautiful, wonderful community. And we have a lot of resources here, and I don't mean money. I think we have a lot of intelligent, resourceful people here who can solve the problems if the city council will come to the community and ask us and ask for our help. We have a lot of great people, even right up here, that can help the city solve some of these problems. And I think there is harm to the community. I don't know how many of you live nearby SR 92, but I do. And I am very grateful to have one day with lots less traffic. Have one day that's closed. I'm 3 homes away. We moved up here and there was no traffic. There was no traffic. My little 1st and 3rd grader could walk from my house to Country Corner. And now we have a lot of traffic, and I feel that that is harming me and my property values.
I think the issue here really is, at what point do we exercise our right to persuade our fellow citizen? Is it the right of us as a community to set our standards as enshrined in the Constitution? Or do we back off of that right and we just put that on a more neighborly, individual basis and say, I'm just going to have to persuade my neighbors or my businesses in the community not to open on Sunday and do that sort of thing? You know, I think a lot of harm has been done in our country by those with a moral community standard view who have been persuaded to back away from public discourse and, in essence, let the vacuum be filled by, oh, everyone should just choose for themselves and everything.